Hello my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to r/EntitledPeople, where people truly believe that they can do what they want, when they want, because they're better than you. And in today's episode, OP destroys a Karen's career, guys, when she won't stop stealing OP's car. Guys, it's gonna be a wild one today, so strap yourselves in, don't shake your heads too hard, and as always, you can send or link your post to this email right here. Let's dive in. So more than 20 years ago, when me and my sisters were still in elementary, our mom took us to a shopping mall for clothes and groceries. After everything was over, we stopped by the bookstore, where us kids picked whatever books we wanted while she was picking educational books for both of us. The bookstore was also selling some physical discs for various softwares, including games. So while both of us were looking into games we wanted, a little boy of our age comes next to us. He got really close, and then out of nowhere, he pokes my sister right in the eye. My sister immediately starts to cry her eyes out, and my mom rushes over to see what was happening. She scolded the little boy after hearing what happened, to which he got upset and went to grab his Karen of a mother. Well, Karen comes over and she demands to know who yelled at her son. The two ladies began to get into a shouting match. My mom argued that the kid had no reason to just come up and hurt my sister like that, and he should be taught better. Karen argued boys will be boys and that he doesn't know any better. That's when Karen asked my mom, "Why are you overreacting? It's not like she went blind." And that was the moment that I decided that enough was enough. Being the big brother, I felt like I had to defend my little sister. So I basically ran up and I did a frontal kick on the kid as hard as I can, making him fall on his ass. I saw that there was a nice footprint on his black shirt. The kid then began to let out the most annoying cry that I've ever heard. The Karen quickly rushes over to her turd and she began shouting at me, screaming that little monsters like me should be in prison for attacking random strangers. That's when I looked her in the eye and said, "Boys will be boys, right? Why are you overreacting?" The woman tried to argue more, but her friend held her back and ushered her out of the store. We went to get burgers and fries afterwards, but my mom lectured me how violence is not the answer. Me, being a little elementary kid, I didn't care. I rode that hype train for weeks. Guys, honestly, I gotta give props to OP for defending his sister like that. And even though violence often isn't the answer, guys, every once in a while, you come across something like this where you go, you know what, I understand. Like, was it the best thing to do in that moment to boot that boy in the chest? Maybe not, but as a big brother, I frickin' understand. Especially when Karen gives her son a pass saying, "Boys will be boys." And guys, it's also funny how her kid can attack others, but once her kid gets attacked, oh boy, that person needs to go to jail, right? Okay, so I'm not really a mean person and genuinely feel horrible for what happened. So I'm a 42-year-old female, and let me tell you, I effed up big time. So 2 weeks ago, on a random Thursday morning at like 1 a.m., someone starts shooting off fireworks in my neighborhood. I've been having bouts of insomnia, and I was finally able to get to sleep. And I had to wake up at 4 a.m. for a meeting that was 2 hours away that I had to be at for 8 a.m. I was pissed, and so were my dogs. I do love fireworks, but of course, there's a time and place. Thursday morning, 1 a.m. is not it. I posted to the neighborhood Facebook group later that morning about people setting off fireworks at 1 a.m. midweek. After I make the long drive home, I check my Facebook, and I'm pretty sure he might be the guy launching the fireworks because this guy comments that the reason I can't sleep wasn't because of the fireworks that night, it's because I'm a fat pig. Now I am chubby, but I'm not sloppy fat. Plus, I just lost the equivalent of a fully grown male wombat, or 54 North American gray squirrels, so I feel frickin' awesome about myself. And this is where I may have really effed up. I respond to the guy, who is maybe mid to late 30s or very early 40s, about the same age group as me. I then write in a comment beneath his "listen" guy's name, "I'm sorry I had to end things, but I just didn't have the same feelings. What you're saying now is just hurtful and mean, so please stop sending me messages and commenting on my Facebook post. It's just pathetic. I told you a dozen times already, we're done, it's over." The following day, I had to get to the airport for an out-of-country vacation that had me getting up early and leaving early, so I don't check my Facebook during all the craziness. I couldn't even check my Facebook if I wanted. I was on a cruise, and I wasn't paying $25 a day for internet, and the country we visited didn't have the greatest Wi-Fi. Besides, I was having a blast, leaving the chaos of the world behind and disconnecting from everyone. I signed on Monday night, and holy cow. Apparently people took this seriously, and they told his wife. I got spam messages from her, and she was freaking out on me, pleading for information, sending me messages over and over again. Her and his friends were DMing me. He was DMing me. It was really bad. The last message was the guy saying that I'm a total C-word because I refused to tell the truth, and I just destroyed his life. I immediately messaged both him and his wife explaining what happened. I even sent pictures of me on vacation, even time-stamped. Apparently the guy's a serial cheater. And when I exposed our affair, another woman exposed her affair with the husband to the wife because she was jealous that he had another side chick. This was the straw that broke the camel's back, because not only was it because of the multiple affairs, but because he humiliated her with how public it was, especially being in a neighborhood group. Wow guys, and to think, if the guy didn't make a comment on OP's appearance, he might still be going around cheating on his wife. And honestly, by the sounds of it, if OP wasn't the catalyst that started everything, it was probably gonna happen sooner or later. And I'm glad it happened sooner, guys, because OP just saved that idiot's wife years of being married to someone unfaithful like that. Funny how things work out sometimes, right? So I just finally got to my destination after this one. I was flying to LAX, and a man and a woman boarded with 4 kids, aged roughly 4 to 8. First, they did not book seats together, and they made a stink. To get people to switch seats with them, to get the 6 to sit together. An hour into the flight, the 2 girls started skipping and running from the middle of the plane up to the cockpit and back repeatedly. They got bored of it and they sat down eventually. Maybe 3 hours in, a boy starts sprinting from one end of the plane to the other incessantly. And of course, many passengers complained. A flight attendant got him to stop, and that lasted like 15 minutes, and off to the races he goes again. But someone else complains and he stops, briefly. At this point, a male flight attendant had enough. He escorts the boy back to his seat and forcefully tells the parents to control the kids. And this is where I took my headphones off due to the yelling. The father is livid at being told to control his kids. He's screaming about having 4 kids and only 2 adults. He's screaming about the flight attendant touching his kid, and he even threatened to sue multiple times. Finally, the flight attendant yells, "Sit the F down." Of course, hearing that, the dude loses it even more, and he yells, "I have your information, I will find you, and I will shoot you." And that's the moment I knew that my night was going to suck. Now, it did take a while, but eventually all the attendants gathered and restrained the guy. A little while later, we were told by the pilot that we had to turn to Albuquerque and land. We stayed on the plane, and local police came and escorted the guy off. The whole family was removed. As I was one of the few that wasn't wearing headphones, they got my information and interviewed me. After that, we were told that there was no fuel truck available to top us off, so they had to send one in. And then the maintenance guy that needed to sign off on the plane was at home, and he had to be called in. We eventually got going, and we made it to LAX about 2 hours late. Honestly guys, I'm actually surprised that OP was only 2 hours late after all this happened. And seriously, when will people learn that if you're on an airplane, you should be on your best behavior? And definitely don't go threatening the flight attendants like that. Like, holy, what a mistake that was. And hopefully he learned his lesson. So let me tell you about my mother. My mom never wanted me. She came from a deeply Mormon family, and she got knocked up by a Southern Baptist boy. I suspect she intentionally got pregnant so that my dad would forever be tied to her. But she didn't know that he would love me more than he would ever love her. She only ever saw me as competition. So there's a story that I've been told many times from different people, and it's always told the same way. When my uncle first saw me, he said, "My God, she's the most beautiful baby I've ever seen." And my mom's go-to response started that day. She would say, "Thanks, she looks just like me, that's why she's gorgeous." My mother was so entitled and self-centered that she couldn't have people praise me without saying something stupid like, "Where do you think she got her looks from?" My dad would defend me, and she did not like that at all. My parents then went on to get divorced, and the divorce wasn't my fault. Dad still loved me. He swore he would never forget me and that we would see each other again soon. My mom, however, decided to keep me from him until I was an adult. He died a year and a half after I found him. When I was going through his belongings, I found letters my mom had written to him, and he kept all of them. The entire time, she was lying to us, telling us she had no idea where he was, and that he had run from his child support obligations, while she kept all the money herself. Meanwhile, she was writing to him. She knew where he was all along, she just didn't want me to know. I also don't know what my dad's response was to any of her letters. If he wrote back, she didn't keep any of them, and the bitch of it was the entire time she was telling me she had no idea where dad was, she would also tell me how badly she wished she knew because she didn't want me in her house anymore. She wished she could send me to my dad, but kept telling me that he didn't want me either. Yes, he did, and yes, my mother is psycho. My mom's also been married many times since the divorce, and each one of her husbands noticed me. And one husband even said to her, "I clearly did not marry you for looks." Instead of setting her husband straight, my jealous mother decided to pack everything I owned into my car. While I was sleeping over at a friend's house, even the driver's seat was packed. When I got home, she told me to leave and to never come back. So I left, and I made something of my life. I've been married a quarter of a century to the same person, and we have an amazing child together. I have a great life. It's not perfect, but I have so much to be grateful for. And my mom's constantly there with subtle jabs and digs, lest I get too comfortable. With that said, a few years ago, my mom's boyfriend decided that he couldn't leave his wife and children for her, after all, and she called me crying. I happened to be on a road trip with my husband who was driving, and she cried, screaming into the phone, "My boyfriend's leaving me." She was hysterical. She suddenly had nowhere to go because she couldn't afford the house they were renting without her boyfriend's paycheck. The problem was, boyfriend calculated how much child support and alimony was going to be, and decided he couldn't afford it, and she demanded to come live with us. My husband could hear my mom's side of the conversation because she was wailing and we were inside the car. He didn't want to be rude by interrupting the conversation, but I could tell he was panicking. My husband cannot stand her. There's no way that she can live under his roof. Not peacefully, anyway. My husband is retired military, and he has 0 F's to give when it comes to her. He hates putting me in the middle, though. He bites his tongue a lot. So I said to her, "When I was a child, you used to tell me that I didn't have a home, remember? You said that was your home, and when I turned 18, I would have to go find my own home, remember? Well, I made my own home, and you have to go find your own damn home." And then I hung up on her. My husband just laughed and said, "I can't believe you did that." Actually, yes, I can. Way to go, OP, for telling mom straight. And guys, it's crazy how people like that always try to come back, right? And seriously, the audacity of OP's mom to come back demanding OP let her live in her house. Like, did you forget what you did? And I can only imagine the level of satisfaction OP got by basically telling her mom to F off and go find another place. Alright, so just before my senior year in high school, I turned 18, and I bought a car with my own money. I'd have liked one sooner, but my mom absolutely refused. And at 18, in my big act of teenage rebellion, I went out and bought one. A couple of months later, my aunt, who we'll call Karen, suddenly left her job from several states away and moved in with us. Without her car. It cost less if she waited 6 months until spring to get it shipped. Something about snowbird travel patterns. She was cheap and a user, as well as an a-hole. So as a result, I was expected to share my recently acquired car with her until hers arrived. This seemed deeply unfair, but nonetheless, it was agreed upon that she could use it for appointments and job interviews since I could take the school bus. My only stipulation is that I needed to be warned in advance because my bus stop was the second one on the route. It left a lot earlier than I needed to if I were to drive, and I like to sleep. So with that said, my Karen aunt is one of those people who likes to rile people up and then mock them for getting pissed off. She's always got a complaint, a harsh word, and she's feuding with somebody over something. Once she moved in with us, her complaint was my alarm clock. My room shared a wall with hers, and the alarm was waking her mooching, unemployed, broke ass up every morning, and that pissed her off. Now, couldn't I just go to bed earlier so I didn't need an alarm clock? Well, the morning schedule at our house went something like this. At 5:30 a.m., my workaholic mother leaves for the office. At 5:45 a.m., my alarm clock goes off if I'm taking the bus to school. At 6:15 a.m., my alarm clock goes off if I'm driving to school. 6:15, I leave if I'm taking the bus to school. And 6:45, I leave if I'm driving to school. Half past never, my Karen aunt's unemployed tushy needs to be anywhere. She approached my workaholic mother about the horrific inconvenience of my using an alarm clock. Her solution was that my mother should wake me up every day at 5:30 before leaving. My mother told her to try earplugs or work it out between us. My workaholic mother is massively non-confrontational and she wanted no part of this dispute. So with that, my aunt starts sneaking into my room to unplug the clock after I fell asleep. Now I'm a hard sleeper, so she pulled this off a few times. A good number of times I was late before I figured out that it wasn't the new cat who initially got blamed. I even woke up to see her standing over my bed one night, which was creepy. I screamed like a banshee, waking the whole house. My aunt Karen claimed sleepwalking, and my mother let her get away with that lame excuse. That's when I thought that I would solve the problem myself with some super glue, which is not the brightest move I made. My aunt started turning the alarm off instead of unplugging it. So I started sleeping with the alarm clock tucked behind my pillow. There was no way that she could do anything to it without waking me. And of course, she was pissed at having not gotten her way and never letting anything go ever. Her next move was to get up when the alarm went off and race into the only bathroom with a shower. It was closer to her room than mine, so she always beat me there. She would stash magazines in there to sit on the toilet, reading until right around 6:20. This was after the school bus had left, but before I needed to leave driving. She would then steal my keys and take my car and go wherever the hell unemployed people go to drive around all day. She just claimed that I wasn't paying attention when she said she needed the car. She wasn't telling me. And this happened many times. She must have stolen my car like 6 times. When my mother wasn't around, she would make snide remarks that if she was woken up, she had just as much right to the bathroom as I did, and that I could solve this problem by not waking her up. In addition to this, she would take my car evenings and weekends, always right before I had babysitting gigs. It never returned with more than fumes in the gas tank. She had to call roadside assistance twice for running out of gas because she guessed wrong on how far she could get on the fumes. Needless to say, I was pissed. Also massively inconvenienced and a lot poorer. I often had to beg friends for last-minute rides or take a cab, and she continued to blame me, and my mother stayed out of it. We then got into a cat and mouse game with my keys, where I eventually kept them on me at all times, even in the shower. The keys came in the shower with me because the counter wasn't enough to stop her from pulling the bathroom lock, coming in while I was showering, and then taking them. Again, creepy. This eventually resulted in her asking in advance to borrow my car for a job interview. That wasn't a job interview. She went to the key shop and she got my car keys copied. The next day, with my keys safely back in my possession, she pulls the shower stunt again. She did it a lot, even when she wouldn't take my car. She was a complete Karen. One day, I head out to the driveway with keys in my hand, and my car's not there. Legit, I thought she'd hotwired it until I got home, and it showed no signs of tampering. Now, I'm not much for poking the bear, but it was the last time to have this out. My aunt then quite smugly admitted to copying the key, and then called me a selfish bitch who didn't know how to share, and many other unfortunate things that I don't remember exactly. She wasn't giving it back, and what was I going to do? That's when I warned her that the car was mine, and she did not have permission to use it ever again. This was a bridge too far for me, that there would be consequences. And hearing me say that, she just laughed in my face. The next morning, my car was not in the driveway. I expected this. Now, one thing my aunt didn't know is that my best friend's dad was a cop. I was practically a fixture in his house for a decade, and he was the closest thing I had to a father figure due to my own deadbeat dad. So I gave him a call, utterly distraught that the car I've worked for so hard has been stolen from my driveway. He was very sympathetic. And did I mention that my car had low jack? It was actually a very nice car, back when it was new anyway. So we do all the reporting and whatever it takes for the cops to find it with low jack. By mid-afternoon, they had found the car in the parking lot of an outlet mall. Now, I don't know what the full details of the encounter were, as I've heard multiple versions of this part of the story over the years. My aunt threw a tantrum upon being accused of theft, including getting into a tussle with an officer. It ended in charges of Grand Theft Auto, resisting arrest, assaulting an officer, and some kind of license-related thing because she'd never switched it to her new state of residence. Don't throw a tantrum and attack a cop. They don't like it much. As this all took some time, she didn't get arraigned that day, as her unemployed broke ass had horrible credit and she had little money. She couldn't make bail. I deleted her answering machine message, begging my mother to come bail her out. My workaholic mother didn't even notice she was gone for almost a week. Once she did notice, I explained that my car had been stolen and I called the cops, and I was handling the situation myself, like she suggested. The look of dawning horror was amazing. She then shrugged and went back to avoiding all confrontation. My aunt served 2 weeks in county lockup until she took a plea deal. I suspect they slow-walked her paperwork a bit. And what happened after was glorious. Her remaining savings were used up on all the fines and court fees, so she finally got around to shipping her car and engaging in a job hunt. The only problem was that she was previously a teacher, and she had yet to get her certification in her new state. Now she had a rap sheet, and she was unable to pass the background check. Time for a new career as a telemarketer. She didn't bother me much after that. We spent the next few months ignoring each other before I headed to college. And that's how an alarm clock ended my entitled aunt's teaching career. And she's never gone back to teaching, thank goodness. My goodness guys, the fallout to her actions were absolutely insane. Like borrowing a car occasionally, sure, no problem. But to make a copy of the key so she can take it whenever she wanted, especially to be petty with OP, oh boy, play stupid games, win stupid prizes is all I can say. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our entitled people. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. I hope you didn't shake your heads too hard. And if you enjoyed the episode, do hit that thumbs up and subscribe if you're not subscribed. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, it's an r/I don't work here lady, where a psycho attacks OP for not serving his son. It's a wild story, so go check it out if you haven't, and myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.